alive! It's alive! It's alive! Oh, in the name of God! Now I know what it feels like to be God!
Still creepy. It's still creepy. I had to rewatch 1931 Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, written by Robert Florey, John Russell, Garrett Fort, and Francis, I might mess his last name, but it's Faragoa. And this movie has kind of terrified me for my whole life. And I just had to, you know, as a grown man now, I had to see if it still held water. And it definitely does. And it definitely does. And I just want to go over what I think, why it's still creepy to me, and I'm sure to millions of other people, as it is a very, you know, everybody knows of Frankenstein. And so I want to tell a story. I'm going to go back to the first time that this movie literally made me pee my pants a little bit. It wasn't even the movie. It was the year 1991, and at my elementary school I was 5, and in the library the library got a bunch of new books for Halloween. I remember it vividly. In the box there was like a monster series, and it had all the different monsters in it. The Mummy, it had Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein. And I can remember being a little kid and seeing these, and they were just big picture books for kids. And so I remember going down the line and starting with like the Wolfman, and it was like, okay. And then I got to Dracula. I was like, yeah, okay. And then whatever the other one was, there's one more. And I remember seeing the cover of the Frankenstein book. And it was like, it wasn't the picture, it was like a cartoon. And I thought, nifty, this is neat. I don't even know what that word is. I couldn't spell Frankenstein. And I remember the first thing that happened is I just grabbed a book like you do, and I flipped it open to the middle, and it was a giant picture of Boris Karloff's giant face staring back at me, and I completely froze in the library. I was off in the corner, just kind of doing my own thing with these books, and I remember I flipped it open, and I made eye contact with him, and I completely froze. It was so terrifying that I literally started to pee my pants. And I can remember peeing a little bit and then stop. I thought, oh God, and I like shut the book, ran out of the library, and ran to the bathroom. And the only other time that's ever happened where I've involuntarily pissed my pants like that is either being way too drunk, or I was getting stitches when I was like 12, and I was so nervous about the stitches in the situation that I just started going. And then I remember maybe 2 years later, a babysitter that I had, she had the movie versions of the book. She had a bunch of Boris Karloff movies, and I remember, I'll never forget it because she was asleep. I was like watching Sesame Street at that point, and I saw the movie, saw his face, and I can remember thinking, okay, I've got to, I've got to try this. I've got to see it. I have to see it. It's that feeling of don't press the red button. It's like when someone tells you to just don't press the red button, and you're like, there's a 100% chance that I'm gonna press this button. And so I remember taking it out of the VHS tape out of the box, and I put it in the VHS, and just terror watching this whole thing. And I can remember like holding onto a pillow, and the pillow would go I had the pillow just above my nose for like when he was on screen, and then I look a little bit, and I think that was the last time as an adolescent that I watched the movie. I saw clips, and you'll see whatever, you'll see clips and stuff like that. And then it was probably about a week ago, and I thought, it just popped in my head, and I was like, I really want to review this, kind of review the movie. Like, why? Because it hit me again. Like, why was this so unbelievably terrifying? And so, about a week ago, you can find this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you have to go out and watch this movie. It's unbelievably good. It's the pacing's fantastic. It's like an hour. It's like 70 minutes, hour 10. It's based off of a play. I have it here. There's a play that came out in like 1927. 1920, yeah, by Peggy Webling. I just wanted to. So it's a quicker movie. It's easy to consume. Watched it, and I realized, like, what is making it creepy. Going back and watching it, clearly the old black and white, the old school 35 millimeter film that they used had the ability to have a really like long focal range, so you could see a lot of the actor and a lot of what's behind the actor, but everything is super soft. So when they would use any kind of special effects, there's a real softness about like a 35 millimeter film. And one thing I really realized about the movie, it's before any sort of jump scare. So it's really quiet. Like there's not a lot of big, even theatrical music. There's spots where there is theatrical music, but there's just when the Frankenstein, when the monster is finally sort of revealed, it's dead quiet. It's absolutely dead quiet. And it's kind of cool because it contrasts to when the monster was created, because that part is so loud. It's thunder, and there's lightning, and he's screaming, and there's electricity, and the camera's bouncing all over the place, and you know, they're piecing together this big electrical machine to shock this zombified man into existence. So there's big chaos. And then when the monster's introduced, it's absolutely silent. It's horrifically creepy because it doesn't give you any room to. Your brain has to piece together that sort of it's just silence. It's really creepy. And so like the door opens up, and then Frankenstein's monster, he comes in, and he's facing backwards. Slowly and steadily, he just starts to turn. The screen is, dark, and everything is shadowed. Then he hits this light, a front light, and finally you get to see his gigantic, strangely shaped head. And one amazing thing that I didn't quite piece together, why it was also so terrifying, is that he leans in the doorway. He leans forward because he just doesn't know how to walk yet. As a new zombified monster man, he doesn't know how to walk. Also, what's terrifying is that Boris Karloff, the gentleman who plays the monster, Frankenstein's monster, he's about 5'11", and he's wearing these giant boots that add probably 2.5 inches. And then on top of that, the makeup on his forehead adds another 2 inches. So he's, at the time, he's pushing probably 6'3", 6'4", generously maybe a 6'5". And Clive Owen is the gentleman who plays the mad scientist, the actual Dr. Frankenstein. But the thing is, the Frankenstein monster is so lumbering above everyone that it makes him look, it would be as if today the monster was, 10 feet, just a giant 7-foot zombie man with bolts out of his neck. And And so with the quietness of it all and the very basic commands that he understands, that initial scene is just terrifying. And one thing also that's kind of strange is that the monster is attracted to light. Even in that scene, he puts his hands up towards the light. He's looking to, which it could be very metaphoric. He's looking to go back. But what is not even confusing, but what is interesting is that he's wildly afraid of fire. And so it's a contradiction, because he likes light, but he doesn't like fire. And so that's a fun. So it's a good sort of, again, sort of a contradiction of what's, he's afraid of fire. And it's also crazy when his Frankenstein's little helper man, I don't know what is that, I don't know if it's Igor, I don't know what they called him in the movie, but the monster and Igor see each other as they're basically instant enemies. They're both deformed in their own ways. And the Frankenstein monster's like, okay, bud, and literally hangs the dude in his jail cell. Just because, again, he's trying to protect himself from the fire. And another terrifying thing. So here's a comparison. If you haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, it's written in 1818, which is insane. It's so cool that it's 200 years old, over 200 years old. I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's over 200 years old. And the difference is, though, is that the Prometheus, or the Frankenstein in Mary Shelley's novel, or her book, is that monster can speak very eloquently as well. He can talk. And so he has these big long dialogues in the book about who he is and where he feels he came from, and he wants a girlfriend, and he's got a second chance in a way, and he's very poetic. It's a very poetic thing in a weird way. And now my point is that the Frankenstein in 1931, he can't talk. He doesn't have the motor skills to speak, which is absolutely terrifying, because Boris Karloff, the actor, has to just portray how he feels, what the situations are, with grunts and screams and just actions. I mean, there's a scene when Frankenstein, the monster, just literally hung the helper, Igor, or whatever you would call him, and he just starts bum rushing the two, Dr. Frankenstein and the other gentleman, and they have this fight back and forth, and he's just making guttural noises, and it's just terrifying, especially black, again, with the black and white 35 millimeter. It is absolutely just terrifying, because he just looks like he's gonna just tear you limb from limb. And so with him not being able to speak, I don't know, to me, it's just, my opinion, less is more in that situation. And I just think it's fantastic. I think this whole movie is fantastic. After seeing it now as a grown man, being able to figure out, I like the moral of this story. Not only is it's a fantastic movie, and does it 100% holds water. If you haven't seen it, it's such a fun watch. No blood, no guts, no jump scares, just black and white, just terrifying. I don't know, just creepy. It's creepy. Like I said, even in the thumbnail, I said it's creepy, and it's so worth a watch. And one thing too you can do, don't tell anybody I said this out loud with my face, because I'll get in trouble, but you can, on Windows, you can have You can have it up on YouTube and hit Windows G. And Windows G it's a screen recorder, so you could technically rent the movie and then you can have it forever. Obviously, don't resell it; you'll get in trouble. And you can do the same thing on a Mac. I don't remember the exact keys on a Mac, but you can do screen record, and you can just little insider trading there. But again, it's 100% worth a watch. But I watched it now as a grown man, and I was like, what is the sort of the moral of this movie? Yes, it's creepy. Yes, there's a giant monster that's created, who ends up, and then there's of course there's the scene when the monster is playing with the girl, and the monster is throwing. I mean, it's the most iconic. It's still, there's memes about it where he's throwing the tops of flowers. Ironically, they're killing flowers and throwing the head of the flower in the water. And when the monster runs out of what he deems to be a beautiful thing, he looks at his hands, and then he looks at the girl, and he thinks, oh, this is another beautiful thing, and he yeets the girl into the water and kills her. That's also foreshadowing and terrifying and awful. Side note, though, I will say about that situation, that girl's father, he just left to get drunk. So, kind of fuck that guy too. Just in general, I would say. But getting back to it, I wanted to know, what is the moral of the story? Because as a child, and even as a man now, I was so fixated on the monster, the scary thing, and I wanted to know what is the moral? What's the moral of this story? And it really is breaking down Dr. Frankenstein, and I even put the clip in the front of this to just prove the point of, it's basically Dr. Frankenstein wanting to be God. Like, he wants to be able to, he says it in the movie, he's playing God. And it's sort of like the moral of the film is sort of, even at the time, and sometimes people will say this, but it's like the scientists shouldn't try to take over for God, like to usurp them. By creating life that way. And in a weird way, Dr. Frankenstein, it's an abuse of power as well, because even from the very intro shots of the movie, he's just pushing his helper, Igor, or whatever they call him. He's pushing his helper to do things that the helper doesn't want to do. Like, they dig up a body, the helper's okay with that, and then there's just a guy who got hung, and Dr. Frankenstein's like, get up there and cut this guy down, and he doesn't. The little helper, that's like breaking the moral code of the little hunchback dude. But he says, no, you do it, and they cut him down, and they can't use that guy's brain. So it really breaks down to Dr. Frankenstein is the actual monster in the movie. He is the actual villain. Because, yeah, he is the villain. There's no because. He just is the villain because he wants to play God in this way. And by creating this monster, the village is terrorized, and he also gets a little girl killed because of his, I don't know if you say ego. You could say ego. I would say his ego. And I think that's now, as a man, I can kind of see through the facade that I built for myself. And also, this is a funny thing that people have brought up, and I also want to put into this, is that it's said on the brain when the little Igor guy, the little hunchback dude, went to get a brain for him at the school. The jar it's in, the jar says abnormal brain on it, and so that there's no way that Dr. Frankenstein wouldn't have read that jar. So really, that dude is actually, he was going to create a killer even if he didn't give a shit, obviously, because you can't in that situation. Like, it said it on the, because again, the little helper guy, and if you got to watch the movie, but the little helper guy grabs the normal brain, and someone scares him, and he smashes it, And he goes, oh, look. And he grabs the other one and just takes off. So Dr. Frankenstein knew that he was recreating a killer. And so really, if you dig into this whole thing, you can really find out that, that he is the bad guy. And then, the monster kills multiple people in the film. And so really that's all Dr. Frankenstein's fault in the long run. Yeah, he just wanted to play God. So I think that's it. That's my review on 1931's Frankenstein, the man who made a monster. Again, fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, it's worth the... You can't find it anywhere. It's on YouTube. You can rent it for like $4. But it's just, especially if you like horror movies, it's a super fun time. Really good. And so that's episode 1. And also, if you've gotten this far, leave me a comment and tell me what movie scared the shit out of you. Because I think that's kind of fun. I think that needs to be... What was the movie that absolutely made you just freak out?